Welcome back to my channel for this week's Human Design Transit Report. Today is Monday, August 1st. Can you believe that it's August? I'm a little in shock about it being August. And yesterday, the sun moved into the gate 33, which traditional human design is the gate of privacy, and in quantum human design is the gate of retelling. It's one of the storytelling gates. And the Earth moved into the gate 19, which in traditional human design is the gate of wanting, and in quantum human design is the gate of attunement. Before we dive into the current transit, I just want to encourage you, if you haven't already, to watch last week's transit, and you can go and see it right here, because I talked a lot about imagination, which is the gate that the Earth was lighting up, and also about leadership, democratic leadership, and that was what the sun was lighting up. And I was talking about how we can use our imaginations to build a narrative, a story, a picture, an understanding about the world that we really want to live in when we can meet the challenges of climate change and the inequities that we have in our world and so on, where we can create a world where everyone can thrive. And so I would really encourage you to go and check it out if you haven't seen it already, because it's also going to inform what I'm going to talk about today and what the themes that are coming up for us with this current transit. So starting with the Earth and the gate 19, it's on the root center. So again, we have the Earth lighting up the root center just as we did last week. So we're grounding ourselves, double grounding ourselves, right? The Earth and the root, because the root is also how we ground our connection to the Earth. It's also part of the commerce circuit, which is a subcircuit of tribal circuitry, and it has to do with partnership. It's half of the channel of partnership, and its mate on the emotional solar plexus is the 49, which is also being lit up right now by Saturn. And I am going to be talking a lot about Saturn and it being retrograde in the 49. And if you haven't had a chance to start watching my series on retrogrades, the retrograde season that we're in right now, and I haven't gotten to the one on Saturn yet, but you can go and watch those right here, because it is very important to be understanding what's happening with retrograde season. This whole channel is being lit up during this transit. You can see it here in this image, and so partnership is being highlighted. What is it that we need for partnership? And the 19 is a very, very sensitive. It's known as the most sensitive gate in the chart. And sometimes it is associated with highly sensitive people. People are very sensitive to energy and also to other things, but particularly sensitive to energy. And it's related to intimacy, and what do we need for intimacy? What creates intimacy? What destroys intimacy? What are the conditions that support intimacy, and so on? And this is a very important part of partnership, right? Is how do we actually create that level of connection that enables us to really bond with each other, to trust each other, to collaborate, and to really work together with each other, which is a very tribal energy, right? Because tribal energy is about our relationships. It's about our connection to, the collective, not really the big collective, but so much like our tribes, our communities, the people that we are closer to. And this can be a partnership. It can be a romantic partnership, but it could also be a work partnership. It could be people that you are, doing any kind of work in the world with. It could be people that you live in a community with and you're partnering together to create a community garden, for example, or to be be picking up trash and beautifying your environment. So there's a lot of different ways that you could be in partnership with people. But this energy is really about what do we need to be able to attune to each other, to attune to what we need, to attune to what others need, and then to create this kind of partnership with each other where we can be paying attention to that. So this picks up on our theme of how can we be cultivating the energies that we need and the capacities that we need to be in right relationship with other people so that we can have trust and so that we can thrive. And then the sun is in the gate 33, which is on the throat center, and it is the final expression of the sensing circuit. So it's collective circuitry. And it's interesting because last week we had the sun in the 31, which is the final expression of the logic circuit, which is also collective circuitry. And this is a sensing circuit, which is right brain energy. So logic is the left brain energy and sensing is right brain energy. And so the right brain energy is not logical, right? It's not logical. It's not rational. It's not reasonable. It's not quantifiable. It's none of those things, right? It's creative. It's expansive. It's abstract. It's embodied. It's experiential. Okay. So it's all of those things. So when we think about this as a storytelling gate, right? A storytelling gate, it's about how we receive our own stories and how we receive the stories of others, whether that's people that we've personally known or how we receive history, for example, or stories that we read about other people or that we learn about, through YouTube or a variety of different ways. How do we receive all of those stories? And then how do we retell a narrative, a story about how that's really empowering for us and for everyone? Right? Because this is about the greater good. It's collective. So it's really about, all of us, right? It can be global energy. It can be about nation states. It is about large groups of people. It's not just about my tribe, right? It's about all the tribes together. So if we're being sensitive and we're paying attention to the quality of energy that we need to be able to create trust, to be able to work together, to have a level of intimacy with each other, to create partnerships that really work and that are going to support the greater good, not just, my particular family or my particular fiefdom. I know sometimes stories get a bad rap in spiritual circles where it's like, oh, that's just a bunch of story. I don't want to hear all that story. You're lost in your story and all of that, right? Which definitely can happen, okay? I mean, when we're in pattern and we've been triggered and we're in pattern and we're in the story of the pattern, it's true, it loops and we can get lost in that and we can want to tell that story over and over again because we're trying to heal whatever it was that is the basis for that trigger that we have, the trauma that we have for that. So that absolutely is true. But story is how we make sense of things. Story is how human beings have understood our world and understood each other since time immemorial. Sitting around the fire telling stories. This is something that, has been true all over for all people. So we don't want to just throw out story. The other thing is that we're meaning-making machines and we make meaning through story, through narrative. It might not be a story like you read in a novel or something like that, or you see in a TV show, but it's still a narrative about how we kind of put different things together so that we make sense of it. So I want to really encourage you to use your imagination, which really got juiced up last week when the sun was in the gate 41, and to use that imagination again to be thinking about how do you want to retell stories about what has happened in the past so that that it can be empowering for you, for your family, for your community, but even more for the collective. The sun is going to give you all the support that you need to be doing that this week. So my invitation to you is to be considering that. You can certainly start with your own personal story, your own history, but then see if you can relate it into other historical things that have happened while you were growing up, right? When you were a young person, however old you are to where you are now. I mean, I know that I really locate my personal history. I grew up in the 60s, right? And the 70s, came of age in the 70s. And those historical moments definitely changed our world for sure, and also really impacted me and my way of seeing the world. And so for you, you're going to have yours, what world you grew up in, right? If you're a millennial, you grew up in a very different world than the one I grew up in. So how did that what was going on at that time really impact you, and how did you respond to it? How did you grow yourself into the person that you are now in your own historical environment? I'm a historicist by training, right? I mean, my PhD is in literatures and English, but with an emphasis in African American studies and women and gender studies, which is very interdisciplinary. So I'm a historicist by training, and I really see everything as being the result of history. And so we are growing into a new time in our world where I think that there are a lot of things about history we can't turn to for answers, because we're coming out of our imperial and colonial history. We have to. We can't keep living this way. Our Earth can't handle it, and it's cruel to humanity, frankly, and to the other companion species that we share our world with. But having an understanding of what has happened in the past and being able to critically think about it so that we can see the world view that becomes so embedded in us that we just think that's just the way things are, right? But when we can step back and really see it and tell a new story about it, so that we can have a foundation to move forward in a more equitable, a more empowered, and more benevolent way into the future. I also want to point out something that's happening during this transit, which is that there are 3 different planets that are lighting up the gate 2. Now, the gate 2 is right here on the G center, and it is where the magnetic monopole is, which is the attractive force of the heart. And so Mars is lighting it up, Uranus is lighting up, and the North Node is lighting it up because the nodes have shifted now. And the North Node in our personal charts is the energy that becomes more prominent in the second half of life. But we can also just think of it as what the energy that we're moving into, right? So this is the energy we're moving into right now. And then Mars is our spiritual warrior. So Mars is, in his lower expression, he's just the warrior, right? He likes to fight. I know Mars is my ruling planet. I've had to learn a lot about Mars. But in his higher expression, he really is that spiritual warrior. He's got a lot of discipline. He's got a lot of power, and he can channel that power for the greater good when he's really in alignment. And then Uranus is the planet of the unexpected, right? The kind of sudden, unexpected things. And it's also a planet of transformation, and also intuition, has a lot of intuition as well. And so if we think about these energies that are all lighting up this gate 2, so the gate 2 is the gate in traditional human design, it's called the keeper of the keys, and in quantum human design, it's called allowing. And I really think of it as a very receptive energy, because after all, the magnetic monopole is there, right? And abundance and attractive energy, right? It's really receiving, bringing things in. It's how we, as generators and manifesting generators, really all of us are attracting things into our life, but for all of the generators, things that we get to respond to. It's also how projectors are bringing in their invitations. Okay, so the 2 is actually very important, and it receives energy from the sacral through the 14. And it, in traditional human design, we really think of it as it really likes to receive money. Okay, it's a prosperous. It's not necessarily a work for money kind of thing. That's more of the 14, but it is an energy that does have to do with prosperity and abundance. If you think of its ability to attract and to allow in. So this key thing is that there isn't work here. This isn't like we're trying really hard. It's more that we're being receptive. We're allowing in. And so this is something that can help us to really receive the insights and the new stories that we're telling that can help us to receive new perspectives and new possibilities into our life, where we can lean into the evolutionary impulse that's very alive in our world right now, and that we can receive an understanding about how we can act as spiritual warriors in our life, how we can be moving into that future, how we can be attuned to sudden things that might happen, the unexpected that might happen, where our intuition can be strong and our ability to really kind of cultivate a desire for the unexpected and to have the flexibility and the resilience to be able to manage the unexpected as well. So if you take a look at this transit as a whole, there's a lot of different ways that the planets are encouraging us to allow in a new perspectives, new ways of understanding things, to really attune ourselves to what's possible for us as tribal people in our partnerships and in our communities, and also how we can be, as the time is right, to be sharing that through that gate of the divine storyteller. Okay, that's my transit report for this week. Many blessings, much love. Bye for now.